Chapter 37. Time's up. The next morning, all the children opened their eyes, right about the time the Moon Woman would have usually been banging on her pan. They each expected her to wake them at any minute, as she had done every day since their arrival. Adam was staring at the moon clock on the wall. He had been noticing how increasingly tired his grandmother had been looking over the last few days. After 20 minutes of pacing and worried about her health, he finally decided to check on her. As he walked toward her room, he saw shadows moving under the door of Verona's room. He thought for a second, then decided to knock. Already up and dressed, Verona opened the door almost instantly. When she saw Adam, she asked without any prompting, "Is she all right?" "I don't know," Adam responded. Then he suggested, "Maybe we should go check on her." Verona nodded, joining him in the small hallway, and they started walking up the stairs. Halfway up, Nurin opened her bedroom door. The old woman greeted the two kids, heading towards her. After saying, "Good morning," she reminded them, "We still have a lot of work to do, so let's get moving. Chop chop." The two 12-year-olds looked at each other, decided whether to drop it. They apparently did, because they just turned around and headed back down the stairs to get the others. That morning, the group was told to conjure up soothing images and focus on them. While they were all doing this, Nurin walked over to a chair next to the window, where she could see it was still raining cats and dogs outside. It hadn't let up for days. While Nurin sat there, looking out of the window, Adam opened his eyes slightly. Sneaking a peek, he caught Nurin rubbing her right leg again, as if it was bothering her. He frowned, but once again closed his eyes and returned to his meditation. Nurin thought the group was progressing well, but she also knew that they were running out of time. It had been about 9 days since they left Darren, Maha, and Asser behind. The weather was getting worse, and Nurin knew they would need to leave soon. She decided to give the group tasks while she worked independently with each of them, trying to speed up the process. After about an hour into a private tutoring session with Jack, they were getting nowhere. Jack felt depressed and lonely. He had a headache, and he wanted it all to be over. Finally, the 13-year-old hit his limit and just stopped talking or answering questions or trying to find something that he once thought possible, but now was convinced wasn't there. Jack decided he was through. "This is a waste of time," he yelled. Jack just felt like he wanted to disappear. Nurin could understand his frustration. After all, she had trained thousands of children just like him. She walked Jack over to the sofa and spoke. "Jack, I know you think this is boring and tiring, but you have to remember, there is only one way to access any power. You must clear the pathway in your mind of all burdens. I know some things are bothering you, and it will take a while for them to disappear. For now, just try to relax. I'll make you some tea while you meditate for a few minutes." Defeated, Jack solemnly nodded. He was still frustrated, but he was too exhausted to argue anymore with Nurin. He sat down on the couch, crossed his legs, and closed his eyes. He took long, even breaths and tried visualizing a happy place. The darkness transformed into the kitchen table back home. It was covered with food. Sitting across from him was his mom. Jack suddenly truly felt at peace again, just like the first time he tried meditating so many days ago. But then the same thing started to happen. His mother's smiling face started to morph into worry, and anxiety started to claw its way into Jack's brain. He didn't want to give up just yet. He thought of what Nurin had said and imagined all of his anxiety balling up. Jack visualized himself grabbing it like a wad of crumpled paper, and he threw it into the garbage. Jack once again started to calm down. Just then, Nurin walked back into the living room. Jack opened his eyes and spotted the tea she was holding, as he was suddenly craving it, but Nurin wasn't looking at him. Nurin saw nothing in the room and was disappointed to see that Jack had given up. "Jack," she called out, "I brought you tea." Jack was extremely confused. "I'm right here," he said in a confused tone. Startled, Nurin took a deep breath, then reached out her arm to where she had heard his voice. The same spot she had left him a few minutes earlier. She clumsily bumped Jack's shoulder. Jack had not yet realized what had just happened. Setting the tea down, Nurin now reached with her other arm. She found him just before her. Nurin got a big smile on her face and pulled him into a great big embrace. She whispered in his ear, "You've done it. You've found your gift." The proud moon woman excitedly called for the rest of the children. Lake, Lincoln, Verona, and Adam came running. When they arrived, Nurin announced, "I have some exciting news for you all." Adam looked around and said, "Let's wait for Jack. Where is he anyway?" Verona knowingly proclaimed, "He's already here." Nurin said, "You are all truly amazing. I have been doing this for centuries, and there is always a process. The process takes time, and it is grueling. But you all only began 7 days ago, and already 2 of you have found your gifts." Adam asked, "What are you talking about? And where is Jack?" By now, Jack had realized what had happened. What he had always said was the case was actually true. He was invisible. He was actually and truly invisible. Jack felt an incredible rush of excitement and confidence suddenly come over him. Then, just like that, Jack started to reappear in front of everyone. Lincoln let out a gasp, the loudest noise he had made in years. They all stood there in shock, but then, all at once, everyone started cheering. They swarmed Jack, hugging him in triumphant celebration. When everyone started to settle down again, Lake questioned her grandmother. "What do you mean 2 of you have found your gifts?" The children, once again, all looked at Nurin. Nurin looked directly at Verona and asked her, "Do you know what I am about to say?" Verona stared at Nurin and looked down in contemplation, then very simply responded with some surprise, "I do." Adam looked at Verona and then at his grandmother, and then back at Verona. "What's going on?" he demanded. "Verona can read minds," Nurin informed the group. Shocked, Adam exclaimed, "That's incredible." Suddenly, he felt embarrassed. Verona looked at Adam with a very kind face, putting him back at ease. Nurin added, "But I believe she can do even more than that. With the right training, I believe she will be able to manipulate or even control people's minds." Lake excitedly asked Verona, "Quick, what am I thinking about right now?" Verona thought this exercise might be fun. She reached for Lake's mind, and it felt like stepping into a summer breeze. Verona felt her feet sinking into something damp and grainy. Looking down, she saw peculiar-looking sand. It was bright blue. Verona looked around and saw that everything around her was the same shade. A bright blue ocean, a bright blue sky, and even bright blue palm trees. Verona got a strange look on her face and answered with some bewilderment. "The color blue?" Lake shouted. "I was thinking of the color blue." Lincoln then poked at his sister's side and whispered, "Do me." Verona more confidently reached for her brother's mind. Immediately, she was swallowed into a world of sound. Music seemed to be blaring from every corner of Lincoln's soul. The music had its own heartbeat. Verona glanced around, but the only thing she could see was Lincoln's iPod, but it looked to be 100 feet tall. She let go and said, "You are thinking about your iPod and your favorite playlist." Lincoln confessed, "Yes, you're right. That's amazing." Without Jack even asking, she stepped into his mind. It was easier than the two before. His thoughts were almost transparent. She felt all his emotions pounding on her at once, his excitement and curiosity. Verona turned towards Jack and said, "You're wondering if you will be able to turn invisible on command." Jack looked at Verona and smiled. Then she turned towards Adam. Adam looked nervous because it seemed like the only thing he ever thought about lately was her. Verona tried to get a hold of Adam's mind, but just couldn't. It was like trying to get inside a locked, bulletproof safe. Adam's heart felt like it had stopped. She said, "I don't know what you are thinking about. It's like I can't get into your head." Lake giggled and said, "I knew it. Adam doesn't have a brain." Adam shot a severe but playful look at his sister. But truthfully, he was relieved his thoughts weren't being read. Nurin looked at Adam and Verona as she said, "That's very interesting, and we should investigate that." She then reminded them all that they still had a lot of work to do and a long way to go. Nurin turned towards the kitchen, took a couple of steps, and then quickly brought her right hand up to her forehead while losing her balance. She stumbled sideways into the wall. As she started to fall, Adam caught his grandmother, grabbing her under her arm, steadying her. He helped her to a nearby chair, and she collapsed into it. The kids all ran to her side and asked, "Are you okay?" Nurin sat for a moment, then said, I'm fine. I just lost my balance. Don't be silly, it's nothing." Verona stared at the old woman for a few seconds before slipping into her mind. It was nothing like the kids. It seemed like the edges were fading into a dusty gray, but what stood out the most was the all-encompassing sense of fear at that moment. Verona knew that something was very wrong. Verona tried to find the exact source of the fear. She informed the others, "I'm sorry, but she's lying. She is weak because the flame is losing its power. She knows that a Sir is in grave peril, and we have run out of time." Verona looked around at her friends and then focused on Adam, saying, "If we have any chance of saving a Sir and your grandmother, we have to go right now." Lake was looking intently at Verona as she was talking. She was already dealing with the possibility of losing her parents, and now she was hearing that the grandmother she had only just met was dying. Lake burst into tears, threw her arms around her grandmother's waist, and squeezed tight. Nurin hugged her back and told her that it was going to be okay. The kids didn't need Verona to tell them that Nurin was lying again. Lake held on tight and wouldn't let go. She then had a moment of pure clarity. She loved her grandmother. Lake channeled that love and peace and started pleading. I love you. I love you. Please don't die. You have to get better. You have to. Amazingly and suddenly, Nurin did start to feel better. Actually, much, much better. In just a few moments, she felt strong and full of energy, maybe better than she had felt in years. It was as if Nurin listened to and obeyed Lake's commands. She let go of Lake for a second, and her rapid recovery halted. She squeezed Lake again and said, You've healed me. That must be your gift. You can heal. Lake leaned back, looking astonished. She had no idea how she had healed her grandmother. Her brain immediately skipped to her parents, but her discovery was interrupted by Nurin. She let go of Lake and said, Verona is right. I wish we had more time, but we don't. You all need to go. Go save Assur and go save the flame.